I think I just need to increase the volume a little bit. And that's it. The volume increases by itself over here, right?
Yeah, and I'll turn it back there too, so you don't even worry about it.
All right,
So
cool.
as long as you got volume on yours, you are good to go.
Okay.
And then that's loud, and you should be good.
Okay.
You can take that back.
Okay.
You're gonna be great.
Yeah. Woosha, woosha.
What's that?
I said woosha.
Woosha?
Yeah,
Woosha.
woosha. Ooh. It's a pretty good turnout.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised
Well,
because I knew there's a game today.
Yeah, well, and I actually think there's less than there normally would because they sent out the live stream to the students.
Ah, okay,
So there's probably a bunch that decided like, oh, I can just sit in my dorm room and watch
and
this.
watch it and stuff like that. Yeah.
We're good?
Yeah, we are good.
I got my little cheat sheet to introduce you.
Okay, cool. Should I go sit down?
Yeah, if you want to sit down.
Okay.
And I know I asked you this before, but I'm super nervous about Njoku, right? Your last
Njoku.
name?
Njoku.
Njoku.
Yeah.
So that you say the N.
Uzo Njoku, yeah.
Njoku.
Njoku is like the and it's like Njoku.
Njoku.
Njoku. Yeah, Njoku.
Uzo Njoku.
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 Yes.
We're good? All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sean O'Connor, acting director of Gower Museums here and assistant professor of studio art. And I'm thrilled tonight to be introducing our guest speaker, Uzo Njoku. Uzo received a BA in studio art from the University of Virginia in 2019 and is currently an MFA candidate at the New York Academy of Art. Uzo and I started talking in 2020 about her coming to campus and exhibiting her work and speaking with our students. And already at that time, she was having a lot of success in her artistic career. But it's been really, it's been great to watch her career just take off through these 2 years that we've been speaking with each other. Uzo has had solo exhibitions at the Volz Clark Gallery in New York and the 4U Gallery in Dubai. She has also successfully grown her small business, launched a line of merchandise featuring her artwork, and has been collaborating with fashion designers Yao Bansa and Frank Horn London. Uzo's current exhibition, Animals Make Us Human, is on display here in Pinnell Gallery until June 4th. So I encourage you all to go see that if you have not. So please join me in welcoming Uzo up to the stage.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here on your campus. I do want to say something about the exhibition. If you end up liking my artist talk, I want to say everyone should take 2 of these and pass one on to a stranger and the other to a friend who knows nothing about this exhibition. So we can get more people down here, the more the merrier. So that's just a little tidbit. If you end up liking it, come up here, say hi, and take 2 of these. So thank you. Okay. So for my artist talk today, I'm gonna basically just take you on a journey, you know, from how I started to where I am right now. A lot of things I didn't expect to happen. I've kind of just been going on this roller coaster. So join me and kind of see everything. So I got my BA at University of Virginia. I switched from statistics to art after after my freshman year. I remember being starry-eyed when I graduated from high school, saying, yes, I wanted to study Arabic and statistics and actual finance until I got into the program, and I was pretty good at it, but I knew my heart wasn't in it, and eventually I might leave even if I got my bachelor's. So I took a year off, and during that year off, I took classes at PVCC College, and I also started painting for my apartment. I would kind of just do recreations, and I would post it on Facebook, and everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. I was like, really? Yeah, this is amazing. And so I started thinking about, maybe I can do art. So I actually didn't start painting until a little bit over 5 years ago, so this is a new talent that I came across. So because I took a year off, all my friends graduated summer 2018, May 2018. I had not really had that many friends in the lower class, and so I kind of felt that, what am I doing? Everyone's gone. I'm still here. I have an extra year here. What am I gonna do? So I ended up working at the Boar's Head Sports Club, and I said, okay, I'm gonna give myself a month to create a coloring book. And so in a month, I started posting myself working on the coloring book, and I started posting just how I came about it. I did a feminist coloring book on women from all over the world, and so I touched upon all aspects of femininity, from something as big as someone in corporate to a mother, showing all aspects of it. And in the back, I had people like Oprah Winfrey, Dolores Huerta, and many women who have done things to impact our lives in certain ways. And so that was the little project I did. And so, yes, I made all these images, I'm posting it everywhere. Where am I gonna get the money from? Coming from a very technical background like statistics, I'm actually a very technical artist. I'm not good with my words. I don't know how to make colorful language, and when you don't know how to make colorful language for arts and academia, you end up not really getting access to a lot of funding because they want to see that colorful language. That's the whole part of it. And so I'm like, okay, how am I gonna get money? So I remember I put it up on pre-order. I did some research and put it up on pre-order, and I decided to self-publish it myself. Did all my research. Okay, how do you self-publish? What do I need to pay for? And in doing that, I also registered Uzo Art LLC as the business. I didn't know what was gonna come from it. I just knew that the best thing would be to register a business. Who knows? And so the first day we had over 800 sales, and I had the money up front to push it through. I already had my bookstore, like the book printers, everything ready. And eventually, UVA picked it up. They loved it. NBC and Charlottesville picked it up too. I was in the news, and everyone was now involved in this coloring book and helping push it out. The alumni network at UVA was very involved as well. And I started to also get it into some independent bookstores and some museums like the VMFA. And so the next video I'm gonna play is a video that UVA did a mini documentary on me, and then we're gonna go from there. My name is Uzo Njoku, and I am a fourth year studio art major at the University of Virginia. When I first started painting, I would paint just to decorate my house, and I would post it on Facebook. And people started giving me feedback about how they loved it, and I decided that this might be a course I wanted to pursue further, and so I changed my major to studio art. I am trying to create an experience based on my identity. I am Nigerian, that's my culture, but then I also was raised in America, so it's kind of like a blurred line. I've always knew that I wanted to make a coloring book because that was kind of what interested me in colors and art when I was younger. And I felt that women of color were not as represented as much in coloring books. So I said, I can do this, and I can try to capture as many different aspects of femininity as I can in this book. I actually created it in a month because I wasn't sleeping. I was working on this coloring book every single day. I don't like waiting. I learned by experience, and I expected to sell only 50. The first orders of books were like 1,200. I reached out to a company. They were able to print out the many books I needed. More international people started following my Instagram, and I had orders as far as New Zealand. If I went through a publishing company, they might have turned me away. If you don't do things yourself, you're gonna find yourself waiting a long time, doubting yourself. Yourself, you know what you want to do. Go for it. So that's how the school got involved and many other ways. And so the next step was I had one last semester at UVA and I was tired of Virginia. I needed to get out of there. So I started looking overseas at London and what's that sound? Okay, sorry. I started looking overseas at London and I started to look at different universities. Sorry, I think there might something's making sounds. I don't know what this is. I think this is it. Okay, perfect. Um, yes. So my experience at London, University of Arts London, I feel really made an impact into how I run my business these days. When I came into London, I was very much, I'm a painter. All I do, I'm a painter, I'm a painter. I had a coloring book, and I spent a lot of time trying to tell them, like, oh, when's your next coloring book? I was like, no, I'm not a illustrator, but I'm an overall painter. So I came into London in my head as a painter. And in London, I was kind of pushed to stop putting myself in a box. Everyone there did something else. Everyone was multidisciplinary. There was people making jewelry, wielders, screen printing. There was everyone was doing everything, and I did notice there was a difference in terms of the coursework. Instead of at UVA where you take steps, you take drawing, and you take acrylic painting or watercolor, and you build up. They in London and the school they wanted you to approach it as many different ways as you can, and conceptualize that way. So they had people had their concepts a little bit more earlier than versus my classmates at UVA who they had the skill set, but most of it was stuff for class, not really stuff for themselves as an artist. So that was the difference. And I also stumbled upon a very huge community of crafts makers. I started going to craft shows. People were making leather goods, furniture, wallpaper, all these things. I was like, art and design, it goes hand in hand. I can do this. And while I was over there, I also learned how to make rugs. And there was also, we had a show and it was at a rundown club. And I'm like, how am I gonna put work in a space that's run down? How are we gonna make it work? And so that also got me thinking that something is done properly when it can enter different spaces and live in it in a seamless way. So that was good experience for that. Um, and one of the pictures in the far right, you'll see I met a leather craftsman. His name is Uzo, also weirdly enough, and and keep that in mind. We ended up doing a collaboration later on. You will see it. I'm gonna touch upon it again. And then there was a school in Croydon, and they wanted me to come down and do a talk about my book and what I do as an artist. And I was like, do kids care? They're like, yeah, they do care. So I remember when I did that, and for like a month straight, these kids were like DMing me, emailing me, sending me their artworks. They all bought coloring books. So it was a really great experience. And yeah, that was London. This was a very key point in where I am today. So I ended up graduating, and after graduating, I didn't get any fellowships, and I moved up to Washington, D.C. I was doing odd jobs, I was nannying, and I was working at the um, Michael's Arts and Crafts store. Um, when you're not in a school anymore, you kind of realize that there's some facilities that you don't have access to anymore, aka a studio. And I usually worked in oil and acrylic and big works. And so for a while, I wasn't creating. And I'm like, there has to be some other way I can do it. And so I remember I had like $700 in my account. And I bought an iPad for like $600. But it was kind of a risk because someone reached out for me to do a small business, to do an illustration for them for the business in exchange. So for a week straight, I was living on ramen and I was teaching myself how to do Procreate, how to do Illustrator, and Photoshop. And that's kind of how I've been learning by doing small jobs along the way. So I did that, and eventually in the summer, I made a print, and someone in London bought it for $600. Then he reached out and he was like, "Oh, I thought this was a painting. I was like, even if I'm poor, I'm never gonna sell a painting for $600. I feel like I can never be at that point again to do so. And we ended up actually forming a relationship, and he ended up being my representative because it is a little bit hard being an artist by yourself, navigating the art world without someone in front of you to go through all the bullshit, like, the people coming at you in different directions. So I put him there in place, and he also raised up funding to pay for an art studio for me in DC. And that's how that connection started, and we have grown so much together into where we are right now. And I remember, I forgot I even applied to the AXA art prize, and I don't remember where I was. I just applied for it. And then one day I got an email saying, "Oh, you're a finalist." And then what happened was when you get into the AXA Art Prize, you get the opportunity for your art to be featured in a gallery in Chicago, San Francisco, and New York. So the final show was in New York, and I remember I had like my book of like artwork. I made like a collections book, and I had it in my arm and just went in there. And I was going up the elevator, and I didn't know who I was with. He was just, and he said, "Oh, what's in your hand? Can I see it?" And he's going through it, and he was like, "You have to apply to the school." He ended up being the director of the New York Academy of Arts, and he he pulled me up into his office. He said, "You have to apply," and they did a very good job in following up and making sure that I did apply to the school. So that's how that connection happened. Um, so, so I applied to the New York Academy of Arts, and I got in, and then COVID hit. COVID hit, and I still don't know how I'm gonna pay for school as well. COVID hit, and oddly enough, COVID was kind of what gave me my break to kind of blow as a business. I remember I lost my jobs, and in Maryland, they couldn't really kick you out for not being able to pay rent at that time period. So I remember for 2 weeks, I was just like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then this personal trainer from Minnesota that I met in Nigeria, he reached out and he said, I think you can sell prints online. We don't have to beg anybody. People just have to see it and they're gonna want it. And so I didn't believe him, of course. And so he put his money down for a week to show we could make twice that amount. We ended up making 5 times that amount. And so that started that relationship. And I think what helped the trajectory was before then, I went viral in January for a meme. I was just playing around, and it grew my followers from 700 to 7,000 overnight. And ever since then, we had that huge, a lot of people having attention on what I'm doing right now, and they kept trying to say, "Oh, you're the meme girl." I was like, "No, I'm actually an artist." It's going back to the coloring book thing. I'm actually an artist. Yes, I did something cool, but overall, I want to be taken seriously as an artist. And so, yeah, we started marketing $20 prints. We needed a price point that people could buy a print and have accessibility. And I realized how important accessibility was because, yes, you can go to a gallery. Not a lot of people have the opportunity to go to galleries, and some people want to be able to put it in your homes, and people don't have the opportunity to. So I said, okay, I'm going to create $20 prints, and that's what I did. Um, of course, as the business was growing, we had some hiccups. Um, that's how you learn. You make hiccups and you learn from it and you quickly change it up. And so that's what happened. And we also hired interns. I gave stipends and gifts and things like that and paid for transportation. And so that's kind of how things got started. And so that's summer of 2020. And so I'm going to show some pictures of what, how we marketed it. So we would have prints and we would show it in different mock-ups. And that's what we had going all over Facebook Marketplace. I mean, not Facebook Marketplace, like Facebook ads. So that's what we had and started running it. And this was my normal style. I was heavily doing heavy patterns in the background. And eventually, I started thinking about just plain colors. And so instead of like applying it to my normal practice, I actually did a separation. So my art page is Uzo Art on Instagram. I made another page called art.uzo, and art.uzo is when I did more minimal works. And so this was like how I played around more with flatter colors and things like that. And so, in doing so, we didn't just sell prints, we sold other products. This is a list of the other products we sold. But the artwork, we sold phone cases, pop sockets, mugs with the artwork, matches, we did candles, we did puzzles, tote bags, greeting cards, and a lot more that didn't have time to fit in here. And so that's kind of how I got started with the whole idea of art doesn't just have to be on a canvas or a print, it can be on many different types of products. Again, I went viral again for an artwork I did. It was a little bit of, I saw something on the New Yorker and I made my own version of it. I called it Catching the 8 a.m. train. And this was an old, um, an old article I saw. It was made in 1998, around the same time period. And he's there to catching the train with his dog. And so I put my person in the bathroom with her phone, her cats, and catching the 8 a.m. train. And with that, I believe was how I got noticed for my first collaboration, which was with Yves Saint Laurent. And they reached out, and it was two other artists that reached out with, and they wanted us to create artwork. And this was the artwork I created for them. And they said that they wanted us to, it's just very vague. They said, we want luxury. That's it. That's all they said. Luxury. Libre, freedom, luxury. That was it. And I was like, okay, that's kind of vague. How am I going to do that? So I decided to have a woman drinking champagne. I played around with the colors to make sure the champagne was very close to the giraffe, had some green. I feel like emerald and green with like the yellow is a little bit more closer to gold and kind of like played around with the colors a bit. And this was what I created. And it was a fun collaboration. I felt that they only had it for the influencers box. And so only influencers had access to it. And I didn't like that because I can't have my whole business and everyone has access to it. And then I'm working with a brand and no one has access to it. Only people that have certain number of followers and things like that. So that was my first thing I worked with. So basically, I ended 2020 with a bang. We made a lot of money. We ended up being a six-figure business, almost seven-figure, and we had a lot of employees. And I had even moved from my small apartment. I bought a house in Maryland, and we had an office space. So a lot of things are kicking and going. So forward. I remember there was a man that came to me because I was working with a bigger company for like my bigger prints, and I didn't really like that. I didn't really like that. I felt it was hard for me to reach out to a representative. And then this man came to me. I think he lost his main job, and he came to me and he gave me some small printed stuff because I ran out of stock of something. I needed something fast. And he actually lived in the same neighborhood as me. And he was like, he came again the next day. He's like, I don't mean to impose, but I feel that I can take up the role and handle all your big prints production. And so he came with samples, and since then he's been handling everything. And every day he sends me pictures of all the orders he gets. Like, thank you so much, thank you so much. So that happened close to the end of the year, and then I started getting some kickback from galleries. Can you even paint? We feel that you need to stop commercializing yourself. You're making yourself kitsch, and no one's gonna buy your originals. So that kind of upset me. I felt that they were basically saying that um, I wasn't a real artist because I was in the commercial world, but the commercial world gave me the financial freedom to create at the capacity that I want to. So I ended up moving to New York. I deferred my acceptance into the New York Academy of Arts. So this time I said, okay, I'm gonna go and start it in August of 2021. So I moved in March 2021, and I had a show at the Volz Clark Gallery in May. And so at that time, because I'm moving, I had to let go a lot of people, had to downsize. I stopped marketing completely. Um, so everything was kind of like, so things are now a little bit calmer for the business side, and I'm painting for my life because I actually didn't really start painting until March. So I had from March till May to complete 15 pieces, and I'm still just moving in. So I'm rushing. It's a high stress period, and the gallery happened in May, and it was huge. It was a big success, And so the whole point of that show was to show that it was possible to show the commercial side of art and the fine art side and put it together. And so I'm gonna show you kind of how I did that. So one of the prints I sold was The Neighborhood at Night. I have this thing of going to very gentrified neighborhoods that used to have black people in it and are now very expensive and putting black people back into it. That's what I do, you know. So this is the neighborhood, and this was actually Park Row in DC. And you see the person wearing a coat over here, keep that in mind. And then you see the couple carrying a painting. And so even though I explored different types of art styles, I wanted to find ways to put all my works together. So keep that in mind. Keep the woman standing right there, and keep the people taking that artwork inside. And so for my show in New York, I did a night version, and I called it The Neighborhood at Night. So I'm thinking, how do I showcase night using without showing the sky, you know? So I started playing with ideas of blue, and color theory has been always very important with everything I do. So I dimmed it down and created a night scene, and I actually did a neighborhood in Williamsburg, in New York. And so also into so this is the one on the right is an artwork that was at the show, and so I needed more ways to embed it into a curated show. So remember the first artwork I told you to remember about how I had the figure in the painting. So then the night version, I had the figure out in front in a mannequin form, and I created a coat out of a pattern I came up with a street view of people walking in New York. So that was my street pattern. And remember that coat. Remember, I made a coat. I made a sample. Remember that coat. And so it was very important to have different ways of putting the show together. So across from this painting, The Neighborhood at Night, I had Good Times, my Good Times painting. And that was the one I kind of wanted to show and make a point that you can make prints and you can sell the original. That was the first thing to go at the show. Majority of the works were sold by the time I got there. So that was my point being proven. And then I had the painting that you guys have seen, I'm sure, Flower Man next to it, and kind of just showed that I don't just work flat, but I can work with details as well. And so that's kind of like how, remember when I split up Uzo Art and Art.Uzo, I finally started to put both of them together and playing around with flatness and detailing. And so going back to The Neighborhood at Night, and the far right, you see a couple that's like making out by the window. And then you see this man in a coat, and he's like going up with his shopping bag. And so I even made a painting on the top, bottom left. You'll see them making, and you'll see the man in the coat at the window. You know, he's like, what's like at the door, what's going on? And there he is chasing the intruder away. And even inside that artwork, inside the home, I even put in Good Times, the painting. So different ways of how I put in the artwork and so and so. On the next right, I also created a scarf called A Trip Around the Sun. And so I made the scarf wrap around that woman. And it was really great because people were wearing that scarf during the show. So it's just kind of cool how the show was embedded with product designs and things like that. And on the far end, I made a wallpaper pattern. And you can't really see it, but in the painting, I painted that wallpaper. And then I made a chair, and in that chair I painted it, and I put a girl sitting there wearing a UV sweater. I probably should have zoomed in more, but I didn't. Okay. So this is the chair that I made. And you can kind of see, and then that bag, a leather bag I made was a bag I made with the first guy I showed you. His name is Uzo. So I came back to him and we did a collaboration, and we did our own rendition of Ghana Must Go bag, which is an immigrant's bag. A lot of immigrants carry it, and in different regions they have different names for it. So that was what I made, and you can see me, even though I made a product, I'm putting it back into a fine arts form. And so this is basically showing my practice and what I was trying to prove during that show. And then, so The show was a success. It was packed. It was lined out in the back. Let's see. You can even show people took videos of it and see how far back it was. So that was my first night. Everything worked out great, and now, and what happened was that the former CEO of Sotheby's even stopped by. He usually doesn't stop by. He was just walking by with his wife, and he saw it. And from that, they commissioned 3 pieces. And now going back to this first painting, we're back again. Remember that piece that this couple was holding? They commit. They bought that piece, and these was the works that they bought from me. So they bought a trifecta with this piece, the name, my black perspective, and the other blue piece. So that's hanging up in their home. So kind of showing how everything has been embedded. And even though I did that show and I was preparing for my next show in Dubai, I also did another collaboration with Tommy Hilfiger. They wanted me to do a mural, and it was a huge wall. I was like, I can't do this by myself. And then I found out that you can actually work with groups of people, and I worked with Colossal Media Group to create it. So this was the mural I did in Brooklyn. Sorry, what happened? So this was the mural I did in Brooklyn, how we're working on it for them, and that's me at the bottom with my big mural. And so that's what I did. That was our summer of 2021. And I will say that yes, New York has provided a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have gotten just sitting in my house in New York. I mean, in Maryland. And so this, and they even did a video on me. So remember in the first video I did with UVA, I'm not gonna play the updated video that they did a mini interview on me to kind of show the difference and how much has happened within this conversation we've had. Okay. I cannot see my. When I started exploring art, I was always wondering, okay, how do I find a way to bridge my Nigerian culture with my American upbringing? And that was when I started studying pattern making. Patterns, I believe, are very interesting, especially where everyone is shifting towards minimalism, very flat colors. I'm kind of going back in time. Something as simple as a curve, a movement can accelerate a pattern and make it create motion in the piece. For the Tommy Hilfiger mural, I used horses. The position of the horse was very important. It's almost like a galloping, conquering feel, like, yes, we are conquering this space. I just want them to say, wow. I want everyone to just be like, wow. I definitely am looking forward to how the public reacts to it. So that's an updated video. You can kind of see the difference in my speech and kind of everything and how far we've come. And so where is my mouse? I don't know where my mouse is. Oh, you see it? Okay. Why is it up there? Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, there we go. Whatever. Okay, so going back to the coats, like the first Neighborhood at Night, and how there was that figure in front and the jacket, I decided to produce it and actually created a clothing brand out of it called Movement of the People. And I wanted it in a way that eventually I could step back from it and other designers can come under it and grow through the company as well. And so this was the coat I created. So I made and created I produced it. And I went to London and I did a campaign shoot to kind of show, I won't say the luxury side, but just to create a different vibe for what you would expect from a street coat. And so this was the video that we made in London. was us doing our first campaign, and then I took it back to New York, and then we did another shoot in Harlem. And so, let me go to it. On the left, I can see this mouse. This is, I made a TikTok. Well, my sister did a TikTok. I don't know how to use TikTok. She makes my TikToks for me. This was the TikTok I made of Harlem. Oop, that's not it. Okay. Sorry, this is so hard. Okay. Whoop, 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 whoop.
For my brain.
So, Vinci. So that was there's actually properly shoots of it, but that was a different vibe of it. We had I remember I put on Twitter, I was like, who wants to model for the coach? And like 20 plus people showed up in Harlem. We just all bunched up wearing the coats in the trains on the streets, and it's been fun. Like I think it's a nice break to do something different. Um, we had it. Different people. I always get random photos of people wearing it. Especially, it's really cool when I see it on the subway and I see someone wearing the coat because the whole essence of it was showing New York through a coat in that way. And ever since then, I recently worked with Apple, and so this was it was fun kind of working with them. I did something for their music, um, Apple Music. And so I did six different artworks and an overarching artwork kind of showing there's a lot of things happening in the African diaspora right now in terms of music and how it's been bridging into different countries. So I did one for the US, that's the girl with the hat. And then I did one for Germany, France, Australia, Canada, and but I'm gonna get back to that. And so right now, with everything I've been doing, I am doing my master's program right now at the New York Academy of Arts. And how do I feel with everything I'm doing? I feel tired. This is me tired. So thank you guys for listening to my artist talk. And questions? Okay. I think there's different lengths. There's different lengths. So I know that the longest length is 300. So I made sure that I was cheaper than Panatogia and North Face. So I made sure to be cheaper than them. You're welcome. And you have it? Yes. Yes. No, you're right. I do try to go back once a month. I mean, once a year. Ankara fabrics are very worn in West Africa. It's actually a wax-resistant fabric that is made mostly overseas in the Dutch. It's a Dutch wax-resistant fabric. Yeah, it's sold heavily. I can go into lengths about discussing Ankara and how I feel that there have not really been much growth in it because when your audience and your target market is Africa, you tend to create the same type of fabric and not create more room for growth, different, the same pattern on different types of fabric and different things like that. It's on the same stiff fabric. And so how I came about it was when I first started painting, I would first be painting those fabrics. Then I realized that a lot of people did that, especially Kehinde Wiley. And the patterns that Kehinde Wiley paints are not his patterns, it's Ankara patterns. And so it's good practice, you learn how to paint patterns, you understand how patterns are created by painting it by hand. But I did know eventually I did want to move away from it and start making my own patterns and finding ways of creating my own patterns and making my own fabric. So that's kind of the journey I've been on so far. Exactly. So it's kind of, I feel like it's very contemporary in the way of how I'm doing it because I would say Ankara is very, I don't call it archaic, but it's very, it's starting to become out of date. And I feel that a lot of my generation, especially the designers, are trying to find newer ways, especially in West Africa, of reinventing things. So this is my way of doing it through art and design. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yeah.
ooh, okay. What kind of inspired you to like go with the style of art that you use instead of maybe other styles like realism or anything like that? Because I really like your artwork. It's really very nice. But I noticed it was like very flat and stuff. What made you like decide that instead of another form of style?
Um, I did know that I always wanted to keep pattern work in it, and so with pattern work, you can't really be realistic with it. It's very flat. Pattern work is flat, and so to play around with it, I started playing around with more, first of all, very black colors, black skin colors like Kerry James Marshall, how he does it. But I realized that it's not just placing a black figure; it's understanding your color palette and how to put it on a canvas properly so that any skin color can go on it and it will be there seamlessly. So I feel like realistic art, I have respect for it, but I feel it's really just practice and it's just a skill that can be acquired if you keep practicing on it. And I think it's more, it takes a lot more to be able to. I mean, once I know how to do realistic paintings, but once you know it, okay, it's nice. I can, it's like I might as well just take a photo, you know? So, how do I create my own version of what I see? So, I started exploring. I feel that colors are a little bit what interests me more in flat colors and kind of playing around with flatness and detailing.
Sorry. I'll hand this to you after. Um, when you create in series, um, do you conceptualize and then create, or do you do it piece by piece, or like what is your creative process when it comes specifically to creating in series?
My series are connected through colors. How I work is like if you have seen the show, I didn't know what animals I was gonna paint. I actually spent a lot of time going through Home Digest magazines and looking at home decor. I'll take pictures of rugs and things like that, and then I will play around with those colors and create from it. Um, and I find that when I do that, it is a little bit easier for those colors to enter back into homes because you're taking colors from a home and you're putting it into artwork, and then you're putting it back. So how I play it is that okay, I knew I wanted to do a yellow and a purple, and so I play around with those colors and I start slowly putting in the figures that I want. When I have my figures, I usually grab people, random people from the streets. I can't keep them for too long, so I'll take a photo of them, and then I'll make them stand there, and I'll do, like make notes about where light is hitting their face and things like that. So um, I play around with the colors and the patterns first before I figure out what to place in the foreground.
I was intrigued, I haven't seen the show yet, I'm sorry,
No, you're
but
good.
I was intrigued by a late image in your slideshow with a woman with various things happening on her face, like somebody cycling on her face and things like that. Can you talk about that? Is that a new strain in your work? And because it felt rather surreal to me and it really appealed
Yes.
to me.
Okay, let me go to it. Yes, it is. I don't know what's going on here. Boom. Sorry. Boom. Okay. So she's talking about My American Dream on the far right. Um, how do I? Okay, I'm gonna run that. I made this piece back early early on. I think it was 2021. I'm gonna look. I know you guys want to see it more in detail, so I'm gonna find it on my website real quickly so I can show you. Boom. Oh. was 2020 I made it, or 2021. One of those years. It was not this year. Since I forget when I make things. Yes, there it is. So I made this back in 2021, and I always think about I achieved my American dream. And what is your American dream? And I decided to put a woman mowing the lawn, you know, that whole, you have your single family home, your family, your dog, that's the American dream. And I put it on a woman's face, you know. And she's looking at you like, why these, like, she's looking at you so you make sure, look what's happening to me right now. And I don't know, I kind of wanted to leave this for interpretation. You know, I didn't want to really talk too much. I just wanted to put things in certain places and leave it up to the viewer to figure out how they felt about the piece. I try not to get too political with what I do, you know, but I do know people do get political with things, so I like leave it up to the viewer, and I might play some things in certain ways to create that conversation. Yes. Yes. So that is my American dream. Any other questions? 2020? Okay.
Can we see your, that one of, is it your recreation of Olympia?
Yes.
Can, that, it's just spectacular.
Oh, thank you.
And I would love for you to talk us through what made you decide to do a
Oh, you had
recreation of that piece.
So I decided to. I actually this is my second time doing a recreation of Olympia. The first time I was painting it. What happened to it? I just had so much to move at the time. I think I was moving from Virginia to into DC, and then like I just couldn't fit it. And so the movers like, this is a beautiful piece. I was like, you can have it. So someone randomly has the other piece, you know, back before I was selling stuff. So this was me doing it again, and I decided to create my own contemporary version of Olympia. I used aster flowers to symbolize my birth month, which is September, and I used my face, and I used pattern works and bright colors and plants, since a lot of people are plant moms. You know, usually in different versions of Olympia, they have a child running through, and a lot of us decide to get plants instead, or dogs, or pets. So I put plants in the background, and so this is my version of Olympia. This is, I think it is, it's like, I think it's 48 by 70 inches. Any other questions?
I have a question. So how do you balance then the product versus the fine art? Is it a continual like tweaking and
Yeah, it's like a continual back and forth,
Yeah.
and like I even painted the coat again. If you stop at the show, you'll see I even painted the figure wearing the coat again. So I'm always thinking like, oh, let me just place this in here, because I don't really have a distinct style, but I do. I think what you can kind of reminisce is the same shoe is through the colors, and sometimes tweaking things around and put in like the big hats that I did in Good Times. This is Good Times. Where's Good Times? This is Good Times. And taken the hat and placed it in different places as well. I even put it in my logo for the clothing brand. So just playing around different things. And even there was a green jacket that I made that was part of the campaign that you saw. I put it in the Apple Music, one of the images, the girl was wearing the green jacket. So finding different ways of like placing it elsewhere, kind of like decide whether at the spur of the moment if I should or should not.
I was just going to ask whether or not you spend much time looking at and referencing Wiley.
Referencing who?
Is his name Wiley? Yeah,
Kehinde Wiley?
yeah.
Yeah, who I reference is I used to look at Kehinde Wiley's work in college, and I stopped after my coloring book. And so this is kind of my own interpretation of stuff. Who I did study very heavily was David Hockney and his colors. Um, yes. So David Hockney, and I really enjoyed his career growth because I like that his works didn't stay the same and have evolved over time. And so I've kept that in mind that I don't have to do one style, I can always evolve. And so I think I've done fun things like, let me even type in David Hockney to show you. Mm, So I've taken things like this, and I'll use the same colors, and I would use it. I use those colors in a children's book, and I remember it went viral, and it was very reminiscent of books made in the 90s, that early 90s, 80s period, like Boom Boom Chicka Boom and all these other kind of books that use those kind of colors. I got a lot of it looks like Little Bill and things like that. So it's been very fun for me playing around with Hockney and understanding just how he's developed his color palette and things like that. I guess I can see if I can find my the children's book I did actually, if I can find it. Desktop, artwork, collaboration. Okay, let's see. Okay. So this was the set design that I did for it using the same colors from the landscape and putting it in different places. And so, oops, I probably should not have did that. Okay. And so I used the exact same colors. I put it in a scape like this for the book, and I did a bedroom using the exact same colors from that landscape, and playing around with how I can use it in an interior space. And I did a living room too as well. So that's kind of how I've been playing around with Hockney. Um, yes. Okay.
I was wondering about the difference between collaborating with artists and having artists work like under your direction, and I guess like the different things that you have taken from that.
Collaborating, and what's the other part?
Collaborating with artists versus like with the big mural, you had people helping you make it. So I
Okay.
guess like working with and then having artists work under your direction.
Have I had
makes
artists work under my direction?
No?
No.
Okay.
Yes, I The mural was my work, and so they are more. I think they see themselves as workers at that point because they just taken what I've already made, put in the colors. I'm there with them, and they're placing the colors and expanding it. So it's like different. Like I don't know if I would call them artists, but they call themselves contractors at that point because it was a group of them trying to put one blow up what's already made into something bigger. So that's different. I did collaborate. I made a planner, a horoscope planner, for this year, and had a writer, someone that's what's the name for people who do horoscope readings? Tarot read. I have one of those people. Like she's an expert in it, and she brought in the ideas of like what each month represents, and so we sat together and came up with ideas for the planner. I would call that a collaboration because it's two of us bringing a creative process, creation into it. Even though I was the one that drew it, I wouldn't have come up with that concept without her inputs. So that's a collaboration in my mind. Um, a collaboration in terms of business is when we're putting things of equal value. If a brand comes to me saying that they want to collaborate with me for me to create artwork for T-shirts, and then they're saying I should bring in money as well, that's not a collaboration. It's not equal. I can do it myself if I have to bring in money, you know? So figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. The children's book is called Chinye's Brother, and it was more, sorry, it was the only book I did before I signed with a publisher. So really since then I worked with a book for HarperCollins, and I have a literary agent now to handle all my stuff. But this was what I did before done, and it was about a brother with autism. You know, her brother had autism, so this was the book she created about that. So that's what the book is called. Any questions?
Any other questions? No?
When you make your products, like you have your mugs and your puzzles, do you ever create a piece that's specifically for that product? Or is it kind of like you have a piece and you just put it into the new product?
Yeah, I've had pieces for that product. The coat, that's the only time I'll ever use that pattern for the product. Oh no, like I lied. I use it for a phone case. I forgot about that. I made a scarf called a trip around the sun. And before I put like a normal figurative, portrait-like work on the scarf until it was worn and it lost its essence. You don't know what it is anymore. So I had to create a different design that showed women dancing around the sun, and that was made specifically for the scarf. For the planners, I did different women for those different months, and so that's only for the planner and calendar. So sometimes I pick and choose when to do that.
Thank you, Uzo.
There's one more question.
Oh, I didn't see it over there, sorry.
Thank you. I would say that your work is wonderfully original, really stunningly original. And at the same time, there are echoes and relationships with other artists, contemporary artists. And I'm just so interested to see how you have adapted color and made it your own, and patterns and made it your own. Even though there are other artists who may be working in similar ways, they're not working in your way. And so how do you see yourself in relationship to some of your contemporaries?
Yes, there's a heavy flow, there's a heavy amount of, I want to call them Kehinde Wiley copies and Kerry James Marshall copies. You kind of see their sons, your children, I call them their children because they create very similar works. And I think that because those are not our contemporaries, but it's good to start by working from an artist. No idea is original, but the whole purpose of being an artist is growing from it. I know that I don't expect my works to look like this in the next 5 years. I don't know where I would go, but I know that what differentiates me is that I'm always thinking of ways to evolve from where I'm starting at. If you look at my works in college, you'll see a very huge difference from it now, and I would hope that continues as I continue on in my journey.
Well, please join us tomorrow night at 5:30 to 7 over in Pinnell Gallery. We'll have an opening reception for Uzo's exhibition. And thank you very much for talking with us tonight.
So if you like my artist talk, feel free to take 2, give 1 to a friend and 1 to a stranger. The show is up till June 4th, so you have plenty of time to spark a conversation with a random person. So yeah. Thank you. What do I do now? Okay. Okay.
really good.
That was good?
Yeah, that was really good.
Two what?
They're
Oh,
over there.
oh,